Yeah, let's proceed to, it's Agri what? The second one?
No, it's AfriForum.
AfriForum. Yes. AfriForum, the platform is yours.
Thank you, Chairperson. Frans Fanon, the author of The Wretched of the Earth, was right about more than what many people of European descent would like to admit. He was right about the psychological impact of liberal Enlightenment thinking on the colonized. He was also right about the consequences of the superiority complex that goes with it, and more particularly, the imperialistic attempts by some to change the world to suit their preconceived ideas about how the world should operate, by destroying the identities and cultures of others. It has been 31 years since the laws according to which the apartheid system was governed have been rescinded. And by now, almost everyone has become disillusioned. Minorities are disillusioned by the fact that their rights aren't protected to the extent that they've been promised. On the other hand, millions in various African cultural communities have been disillusioned by the fact that their hopes and dreams have not materialized. This begs the question, are we really free? Can we really say that South Africa is a free country when it suffers under an unemployment rate of more than 32%? In other words, can we say that simply giving people the right to vote is sufficient to make them free? I'm sure that most of the people in this discussion would agree that the answer is no. We are free to vote for some political party, but in the real world, we aren't free. This is what the author of The Origins of Totalitarianism, Hannah Arendt, meant when she spoke of the freedom to be free. To be free is not merely to comply with some revolutionary prerequisite of freedom, but to actually experience freedom. So in this context, it's good to have discussions about land reform and property rights. The problem, however, with the South African government's approach to land reform, its demand for expropriation without compensation, and the bill that is currently under discussion, is that it will achieve the exact opposite of that which it proclaims. Expropriation without compensation will not promote freedom. Expropriation without compensation will not promote justice. It will not promote equality, nor will it lead to increased job creation. It will do the opposite. It will curtail freedom, it will curtail justice, and it will increase unemployment. What this country needs, Mr. Chairperson, and what those who claim to represent the people in particular need, is a serious injection of empiricism. And what I mean when I say we need more empiricism is that we need to be more empirical, that our policies and our actions must be guided by what we learn from and what we experience in the real world, not by some cargo cult or a set of utopian ideas that are completely detached from reality. And if we were to talk about an issue such as land reform and expropriation without compensation, and we were guided by empirical evidence, we would have to consider the following. Yes, that the South African government has by now spent probably more than 60 billion rand on land reform, but of all the land acquired by the state since 1994, only 6.3% has been transferred to private ownership. That about a quarter of the land in South Africa is by now state-owned or state-controlled. That the so-called hunger for land is largely a myth, particularly when we talk about agricultural land. More than 90% of land claimants have said that they would rather want money than land. About 60% of land claims are in urban areas. 84% of land grabs are in metros. Only 2.8% of university students are enrolled to study agricultural science or similar courses. Only 1%, that's 1 out of 100 people in South Africa, believe that more land reform would improve their lives. And 0.6%, that's virtually 1 out of 200 people in South Africa, think that land distribution is South Africa's most serious unresolved problem. The Department of Agriculture has stated that more than 90% of land reform projects have failed, with commercial farms transformed into subsistence farms or squatter camps. Former President Kgalema Motlanthe pointed to large-scale corruption as one of the most significant contributing factors to the failure of land reform. We would have to look at the majestic failures of similar policies to those that South Africa is flirting with, which have already been tried and tested in communist China, the Soviet Union, Venezuela, and Zimbabwe. Nowhere have these state-driven, socialistic redistribution policies resulted in a heightened sense of freedom and justice, and nowhere has it sustainably increased employment. Henry Hazlitt said that the art of economics can be summed up in one lesson. The one lesson is the following. The art of economics consists in looking not merely at the immediate, but the longer effects of any act or policy. It consists in tracing the consequences of that policy, not merely for one group, but for all groups. Murray Rothbard said that it is no crime to be ignorant of economics, but it is totally irresponsible to have a loud and vociferous opinion on economic subjects while remaining in this state of ignorance. All the evidence indicates that this policy doesn't work, and that a transformation of the current half-baked socialist policy into a fully fledged socialist policy would simply transform the consequences thereof from a half-baked failure to a fully fledged failure. Reflecting on the atrocities of the 20th century and the lessons learned from it, Hannah Arendt said that we are inclined to believe that freedom begins where politics ends, because we have seen that freedom disappeared where politics became endless and limitless. The less politics, so it seems, the more freedom, or the smaller the space occupied by the political, the larger the domain left to freedom. To truly liberate people from the wretchedness that Frantz Fanon spoke of, they need to be freed to be free. This can only be achieved through empirical policies that are grounded in facts and evidence, not through some flight of fantasy with utopian ideas that are detached from reality, as this would only heighten the sense of wretchedness among the people in South Africa. Thank you, Mr. Chairperson.
Thank you very much. May I, just before I open the floor, say that the Freedom Charter said that the people of South Africa as a whole are entitled to the right to determine their own destiny. And that in the Harare Declaration, the South African people, with the backing of the AU, develop a process for addressing their own issues without foreign intervention. Do you believe in the capacity of South Africans, both black and white, to find solutions to their own problems? And if so, can you explain why you rush to the United Nations to raise your concerns about processes in the country before South Africans themselves sit, as we are sitting now, to deal with these issues? Thank you. I'll take other hands and then you can answer this together with the other questions. On Advocate Bonani.
Chair, we've got Dr. Ndlozi and Mr. Roets.
Dr. Ndlozi, Honorable Roets. Honorable Dr. Ndlozi, proceed, please.
Thanks, Honorable Chairperson. I'm fascinated by AfriForum's reliance on Frantz Fanon and Hannah Arendt. So I've got few clarity-seeking questions. The first one, of course, is where did Fanon say or speak about the superiority complex of the colonized? And I'm quoting you directly here. In which book, where did Fanon say that the colonized have a superiority complex? That's the first one. Then the second one, are you aware that in The Wretched of the Earth, actually Fanon centers the question of the land, and he actually advocates that, if possible, the colonized must fight violently to recover their land, that decolonization is unnegotiably the return of the land to the natives. I mean, if you really believe in Fanon, you seem to be doing so, unless it's a dishonest and patronizing reference to Fanon. If you do a rendering Fanon in that way, particularly the wretched of the earth, Fanon actually advocates for a violent return of the land. If we are to follow his method, we must violently, if needs be, take back the land, and he's uncompromising that that land belongs to African people. Are you aware of that, and what's your reaction, since you rely on him? And finally, it's Hannah Arendt. In the Origins of Totalitarianism, a chapter on race and bureaucracy, Hannah Arendt says that the absolute dependence on the work of others and the complete contempt for labor and productivity in any form is what transformed the Dutchmen into Boers and gave the Dutchmen and the Boers their distinct concept of race, or that gave their concept of race a distinct economic meaning. So their entire economic philosophy that transformed them into Boers was absolute dependence on the work of natives, contempt for labor and productivity in any form. So Hannah Arendt's take on the historic development of the Boers lies in that particular fact in the Origins of Totalitarianism. Are you aware of that, since you are relying on her concept of freedom? If she were to be asked today, which she clarifies how race and bureaucracy came to characterize apartheid in the Origins of Totalitarianism, she would tell you in no equivocal terms, you have to return the land to African people. Return it without, not buy it, not pay for it, return it, because it was constituted or taken through an authoritarian system which he characterizes as a crime against humanity. Those are my three questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Honorable Ndlozi. Honorable Roets.
Prof and Chairperson, to this all-important portfolio committee, thank you for this opportunity. Lest I fall into yesterday's trap. By the by, what is the name of the presenter? On behalf of
you are helping me as well. I didn't get his name. Mr. Can you give us your name?
For record purposes.
It's Ernst Roets from AfriForum. Ernst, E-R-N-S-T.
Oh, Arendt's surname?
Roets, R-O-E-T-S.
Roets. And then what is your position in the AfriForum?
I'm head of policy and action at AfriForum.
Okay, thank you very much. Honorable Roets, thank you for...
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank
you very much, Prof. And thank you very much, Mr. Roets. I think the presenter, Prof. and Chairperson, has educated us on a number of things. But however, because he showed how unemployment has been caused and it will be worsened by the process that we have initiated. However, I've got these two questions. Question number one, does Mr. Roets agree that this land we are talking about was illegally taken away from the indigenous and African people as we are speaking now? Is he in agreement with that? I mean, we must start at the beginning. Does he agree that the land was illegally taken from its rightful owners? And suppose he agrees with me. And if he doesn't agree, because I don't see any other option, if he doesn't agree, he will say so. If he agrees with me, how, according to him, are we supposed to address the problem where the land was illegally taken from its rightful owner? Because it would mean, if it was illegally taken, we are sitting with a problem. Is he having any mechanism or proposals which can address this so that the indigenous owners must be the beneficiary of that which was taken away from them. Simple and straightforward as that. We understand all these politics of saying we have got more than 30 years, there is corruption, and it will cause unemployment. But can that which belongs to Caesar be taken back to Caesar? And can he come up with the mechanisms of addressing the problem? Thank you very much, Prof.
Thank you, Honorable Murasa, for a pointed question. Is there any other hand? Advocate Ramano?
None, Chair.
Mr. Roets?
I'm willing to.
Hello?
I'm willing to.
You are willing to speak, Honorable Gumede?
Yes, yes, Chair.
No, you are always welcome. Please proceed.
No, Chair, it's because, I had taken a decision that I won't ask Ernst Roets a question. I want to say I'm really, really disappointed. Very much disappointed. It looks as if he is turning history around.
On a point of order, Chairperson.
Point of order, let's hear.
Yes, Honourable Gumede is very much well aware that he's supposed to ask questions of information in terms of the presentation. We are not interested in his view on history at this moment. Thank you, sir.
Honorable.
No, me, I'm very interested, Chairperson. I'm interested in Gumede's view of history if it foregrounds his question.
In your view, Mr. Ndlozi, we're not interested.
Yeah, I'm also important. My view is important. I think you must shut up, man. Let people speak here.
Honorable Ndlozi.
Nobody interrupts him, Chairperson. He must shut up.
No, there's only one chair who will make rulings on point of orders. Honorable Dr. Melda. We have different ways of approaching situations. And I think Honorable Gumede is entitled to his way, provided he bears in mind, and I have no doubt that he will do, that we are asking questions for clarity and not debating. But otherwise, his approach is perfectly in order. Proceed, Honorable Gumede.
Chair, I think that's the way, even when the presenter started, he was presenting his views. So I think I'm entitled to put down my views as well. But it's a preamble. That's why I'm saying that he is turning the history around. I don't believe that there is no hunger for land. All what we are saying is just a myth. That's what we have been told here. That we seem to be saying, let's take land back to people. It's just a myth. That we are spending this valuable time for us, we are just chasing shadows, and that's a myth. And he quotes, these are statistics coming from, I think they were done, this 1% thing, that only 1% of people think that the acquisition of land will improve their life. That was a very distorted question that was put to these people, as well as the idea that many people, they go around and invade build shacks around metros. That's a misconception. People are all over. They want land. It's only that they are killed. You go
Honorable Gumede?
Yes, Chair.
Yeah, proceed.
Yes. Chair, what I wanted to find out from the gentleman is, does he really believe that land, historical, I'm talking history now, that land was taken away from Black people? Does he believe that? Because when you come and you distort questions to people, ask them, and then you come with a notion that it's 1%. Who designated those questions? And how well were those questions phrased? Perhaps, Chair, I support the view that may say, as much as it's not a good thing, that's what the involvement of Parliament is trying to fight a comment by MP Ndlozi that we need to fight violently to get back our land. That's what we are trying to avoid. Otherwise, people are prepared to do that. Chair, let me wait there. Okay, thank you.
Honorable Roets, please address us, maybe in addition to the illegal dispossession of land. We can also address the fact that in most cases, that dispossession was violent. And what we are trying to do in this process is to avoid violent resolution of conflicts amongst ourselves. Thank you. Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. Just on a side note, you can just call me Ernst or Roets or Mr. Roets. You don't need to call me honorable. I'm not a member of parliament. So I wrote down the questions, and I'll start with yours, where you asked if I or we at AfriForum have confidence in South Africans to resolve issues like these. And yes, we do. We certainly do have confidence in the people of South Africa to resolve issues like these. But what we do not have confidence in is the people who represent the people of South Africa in Parliament. There was a study done. It might have been the Institute for Justice and Reconciliation. I'm not sure. We can look that up easily. They did a poll where they asked politicians. They surveyed politicians and they asked them what are their top priorities. And it turns out that education was, for example, number 16 on average. So basically, if you interview people in South Africa and you ask them what are the biggest problems that need to be resolved, and you take that list and you flip it upside down, then you find the list of priorities by most of the people who are sitting in Parliament. So we don't have confidence in Parliament to resolve these issues, but we do have confidence in the people to resolve these issues. But the problem is the people aren't properly represented in Parliament. As far as the question of Mr. Ndlozi, I think I wrote down all three questions. The first is, you might have misheard me. I didn't say that Frans Fanon said that the colonized have a superiority complex. I said that Frans Fanon was right about the consequences of the superiority complex that goes with the liberal Enlightenment thinking. In other words, the superiority complex of those who are doing the colonizing. He was right about pointing out to that. It was a reality, and it's something that we should concede. I do, however, think his reading of Hannah Arendt is wrong, because Hannah Arendt, her entire claim was about, or mission was about taking a stance against totalitarianism. She was certainly not, and would not have been in favor of replacing one totalitarianist system with another totalitarianist system. And she spoke about dependence, and I think Mr. Ndlozi referred to, or Dr. Ndlozi, about Afrikaners being dependent on natives. And I agree. I think that's the words he used, at least. I agree with him. I think it was as an Afrikaner, I think that was one of the mistakes that Afrikaners made in history, was to make themselves dependent on others, and to make themselves dependent on labor from other African or Black African peoples, for example. But what's happening here, what this policy is doing, is to make people dependent on government. So if the whole point is to combat dependency, then we should abandon these policies, because as I've pointed out, the whole mission here, and I know the EFF, for example, and many in the ANC have said so in the past, is that the state must own the land. So what's happening is people are becoming dependent on the state. So if the mission, or if the point is to increase independence, then we shouldn't embark on policies that will increase dependence. If we're talking about returning the land to the people, this policy is not about returning the land to the people. This is about the state acquiring the land. We know that from what many people have said about this policy, what they aim to achieve by this policy, and we know this from empirical evidence, the fact that only 6% of government acquired land has been transferred into private ownership. So the whole point is If the point is to give the people the land, to transfer, to increase private property, then that's something that we can support. But if the point is for the state to own the land, in other words, for the people not to own the land, then that's something that has to be opposed. Mr. Murachela Setla, I think, if I wrote down his name correctly, he asked his question. Mr. Gumere's question was actually exactly the same. It was, do we agree that land was illegally taken from indigenous people? And then on top of that, how are we supposed to address this issue? If the answer is yes. The answer to the first question is both yes and no. We must be very cautious of succumbing to this one-dimensional narrative about history, where it's a story that you can tell in 2 sentences and then make certain government policies based on that conclusion. The truth is that there were instances, there were atrocious instances, and there were massive injustices in this country where land was taken from people in ways that cannot be justified in any sustainable way. And there were cases where people bought land. There were cases where people owned land and they sold that land. And now you cannot accuse someone who bought property from someone of being an illegitimate owner of that land. That's part of the problem with this entire process. And the fact that this comes out so easily, that this intermingling of the idea that land that was dispossessed, or people who were dispossessed, have to be taken, have to be given back their land, with the idea that if you are white and you own land, then by definition you are an illegitimate owner of that land. The fact that these two get intertwined so easily by the people who are pushing this policy is exactly the reason why this is such a destructive policy, because that means it's not about correcting historical injustices. It's about giving the state more power, and it's about pushing an underlying racial agenda. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Roets. Let me also just remind you that AfriForum members participated in our public hearings, and we appreciate the fact that you attended this hearing, because we want to hear all South Africans, and we will consider their contributions on their merits and demerits. Thank you very much. Can we then give the platform? Yes.
Apologies, Chair. Is it possible that we can take a follow-up on the responses of Mr. Roets?
By all means. Thank you. Proceed.
Thank you very much, Chair. In the first letter response by Mr. Roets, he indicates that the people of South Africa are not well represented in Parliament. Therefore, this process, in his insinuation, is not a proper process. So my question to him is, why are you participating in a process that you do not believe in? Because when you say we are not well represented, it clearly indicates that you do not believe in what this particular committee seeks to achieve. Number 2, Chair, it's just a question not necessarily based on his own presentation or his response. In numerous public hearings that we have held throughout the country, there was minimal participation of AfriForum in those public hearings. I just want to find out from Mr. Roets, what informed this? Why were members of AfriForum not on the ground in all 9 provinces where we were, where there was a meaningful process to allow people?
Hello?
If there was any, Chair?
Yes, proceed.
Yeah, I'm saying it was quite minimal. So I want to check from him, were they fearful of what our people are going to say on the ground, or they just assume that oral submissions and written submissions were sufficient for their participation? Thank you, Chair.
Honorable Mahlatse, I said that there are diversity of opinions, and I think Mr. Roets expressed his opinion, but your question is still valid, to offer him an opportunity to tell us why he has no confidence in this process, but yet he appears before us. Proceed, Mr. Roets.
Chairperson?
Oh, no, Chair, I had raised my hand.
Chairperson. Oh.
Okay, let's take the hand before he responds. Who is that? Is that Honorable Shivambu?
Yes, Chair.
I thought it was an old hand. Proceed.
No, it's a new hand.
Yeah.
Okay.
Look, I think we've made this observation several times that, you know, the way this process is so transparent and democratic, we even allow racists to come and speak in parliament and say that this parliamentary process is not legitimate.
It's not a point of order.
Representative of
point of order.
Themselves.
Yes, Honorable Shivambu, let's hear the point of order.
Did I hear the Honorable Shivambu insult the presenter by calling him a racist? If so, that's unparliamentary. He should apologize and withdraw that terrible remark.
Honorable,
he never said somebody's by name is a racist. Generally, we allow racists.
I said as part of this process, we allow all sorts of characters from different creed and form, including racist children and kids who come and undermine this particular process. That is what we've been doing, listening to absolute nonsense and rubbish from people who are saying that they were not legitimate. Why would you even suggest that a democratic parliament that has been voted in by a huge percentage of eligible voters is not legitimate? Is it because it's not a white-only parliament which legitimated the land in colonial dispossession and apartheid that banished our people to small pieces of land here in South Africa? And a democratic parliament which is majority black, you say, no, this parliament is not the representative of the people. What other mechanism do you want to be represented in this particular process? So it's only legitimate when it's white only. What kind of nonsense is this? And then we must listen to this. Let's hear, Chair, but I think some of the things were just being taken for granted here and deliberately being provoked. But we know what is the intention. Let's listen to the response of this boy.
Thank you, Honorable Shivambu. Honorable Dr. Mulder, I don't think that it is wrong to make an inference that a certain conduct could be informed by racism. But Honorable Shivambu did not say anybody is a racist. And that's why I did not rule him out. So let's proceed. Mr. Roets, can you address us?
Chairperson, I wanted, I think.
Who is that? Is that Honorable Dr. Nzozi?
Yes, Chairperson.
Proceed.
No, thanks, Chair. I thought that it's important to make, not to miss the opportunity, and maybe you will do it, Honorable Chairperson, at the end. And here, I really think we must not miss the opportunity to put our foot down. Surveys from an empirical point of view, if empiricism is science, surveys can never empirically rise to the factual accuracy of elections. A person comes to us and says, we're illegitimate as parliament. At some point, Chairperson, we must be able to at least evoke our authority because we actually do have it. Whoever does not believe in us, don't talk to us. Whoever does not think whoever thinks we're illegitimate, don't talk to us because we're not scared of you. We're not scared of anything that you can do once you conclude that we are illegitimate. Everybody that comes and we give them audience, who goes around talking to illegitimate people, Honorable Chairperson? Who goes around, spends their time talking to illegitimate people? It is wrong, and I make it unequivocal that it is motivated by racial patronization that actually informs AfriForum. You ask them, why go to the UN, leave democratic structures here? He answers, goes and says, they don't trust in parliament, they don't think it's legitimate, it does not represent the people of South Africa. Who are they to say that? Why talk to us? Why talk to us if we're illegitimate? These people are wrong. And I am saying that they are saying that because they are racist as an organization. Roots is racist. Thank you.
Honorable Ndlozi and honorable members, wrongly or rightly, I believe that we should not waste time on unfounded statements or opinions, because this parliament members of this parliament were elected by the majority of South Africans, both black and white. So it cannot have any substance that the parliament is legitimate. I think that must be dismissed with the contempt that it deserves. Honorable Ruth, address us, please. Mr. Ruth, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I've noted the disagreement within the EFF with Floyd Shivambu vehemently disagreeing that me or AfriForum are racist, but Ndlozi stating that it is the case. I'll respond to.
That is not true. You are racist, Roots. You don't misrepresent me. I said I'm referring to you are racist. Don't try to put your words in my mouth. Racist fool.
Okay. Thank you.
Honorable Mr. Roots, don't interpret other opinions. Respond to the questions. I think all members made very clear questions that deserve your attention. Please answer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will do so. Firstly, I'm not sure, Mrs. Mahlachi, why she says that AfriForum didn't participate in the local meetings, because we participated in virtually.
Honorable Chair, 1 second. I don't want to be rude, if I may. I can see here on the platform, just to assist Chair, Honorable Klaba's hand is up, probably because I was tempted to raise my hand as well. Probably he will cover what I was going to say if he can be given an opportunity before he, it's Lesoma, Chair. So Klaba's hand is up.
The hand?
Mr. Klaba, Honorable Klaba.
You want to speak now?
I thought because he had his hand long time ago.
I see. I
yes.
Okay, I didn't see that hand. Honorable Klaba, please proceed before the answer.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. And
Honorable Klaba,
can you hear me, Chair? Can you hear me now?
Now can you?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes, my hand was up earlier because I wanted to comment on the comment made by Mr. Roets. And I find it disappointing that he would come here and say, in short, I don't recognize you. And because all what is said was an equivalent to saying just that, I recognize you. And he still expects us to take him seriously and apply our mind on the presentation that a body as big as AfriForum has made before this, before us. Why must he think we must take him seriously? Why must he think we must apply our mind on his presentation, where he is so bold in saying, I don't recognize you? I'm putting it in my own words, but all what he said, it boils down to just that. I thought I should just leave it at that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Honorable Kaba. I think that will assist Mr. Roets to address this gathering. Mr. Roets?
Thank you. Thank you, Chairperson. I didn't say that Parliament is illegitimate. I didn't say that we at AfriForum don't recognize Parliament. What I said was that politicians in Parliament seem to be out of touch with realities on ground level, that they do not properly represent people, because if you ask people what they think are important, what should be done, and if you ask Many people in Parliament, probably, surely not all of them, undoubtedly not all of them, but many people in Parliament, if you ask them what their priorities are, it's completely detached from what the priorities of people on ground level are. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying Parliament is illegitimate. I'm not saying that we don't recognize Parliament or anything like that. That's a straw man, with all due respect, Mr. Chairperson. AfriForum did participate in these meetings, virtually every single one of them in all of the provinces. I spoke at 2 of them. Our members spoke at, as I said, in virtually all of them. So we were there, and we believe that we should participate in this process as we are doing now.
Hello, who's that?
Can you continue, Mr. Chair?
Yeah, proceed.
Chairperson.
Okay. Yes.
Yes, Mahlatsi, I'm sorry to interject like I am now. And I maybe Mr. Root is not aware that there was never a public hearing that was virtual. Is he
Honorable Mahlatsi, with respect, allow the speaker to finish. If there are other things that you want to raise, I'll give you an opportunity, but we shouldn't interrupt him when he's speaking. Mr. Roets, proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. So yeah, the point is that we do believe that this is a process that we should participate in. Our concern is that the issue of this push for land reform, and particularly expropriation without compensation, does not take cognizance of the realities on ground level. And if there's a problem with some of the statistics that we have quoted or I've quoted, we can surely review them or revise them. But you cannot. It's not really an argument to say your statistics are wrong without giving better statistics, or to say this is why the statistics are wrong. If they are wrong, then we should stop using them. If they aren't wrong, then we cannot simply just say these statistics are wrong because we disagree with the point that they raise. So, Mr. Chairperson, we can all pretend that we are very important. We can all pretend that the people in South Africa have great respect for Parliament, and that the people in South Africa love their politicians and the people who work in Parliament, but that doesn't detract from the humor and the irony in the fact that a corruption connoisseur like Floyd Shivambu is trying to lecture us on how to properly run a country.
No.
Honorable.
No, Chairperson.
Honorable Roets.
We are not going to be abused by this racist boy here.
No, Mr. Roets.
Yes, Chairperson.
I advised you not to run commentary on what other people said.
No, you must withdraw. You must withdraw.
You must
withdraw.
Leave us. That must be put to you, Mr. Roets. Please take this meeting seriously. Withdraw and return to answering the questions.
Mr. Chairperson, don't you think it's unfair if the members of Parliament make all sorts of atrocious accusations towards me and towards AfriForum and towards our members, and you allow that, but if I respond, you tell me I must withdraw?
Mr. Roets, I say the questions put to you were very clear. Focus on answering the questions, not on commenting on other things. The questions were clear. Can you deal with the questions?
Chair?
Yes.
Can you recognize me?
Yes.
I'm rising on a point of order, Chair.
Yeah.
I just want to speak really on behalf of all the presenters.
Who are you?
Honorable
Noku?
Yes, Chair.
Okay, proceed.
Chair, I just want to really speak on behalf of the presenters that are still coming. Really addressing you, Chair. I understand that we are here, Chair, to engage the presenters and to get clarity on the question, on the presentation that they are making. But my worry, Chair, is that you are allowing arguments with the presenters, and especially from our side as parliamentarians. I think, Chair, it's very important that we cannot instill our views onto the presenters. That is something that you got to rule on, Chair. Otherwise, you're making this public hearing a challenge. We are here to listen, to take note, and to ask questions for clarity. Many other things, Chair, we will come into our committees and we'll deliberate and look at what is facts, what is not facts, and then obviously debate on the bill itself. Can you please just allow the presenters to present and allow the parliamentarians to ask questions for clarity, not to instill views onto the presenters or argue with the presenters? Thank you, Chair.
Honorable Masipa, that's what I said from the right at the beginning. And that's why I've said the questions put by the honorable members are clear and straightforward, that Mr. Roets must answer those questions and not debate the merits or demerits of the opinions of honorable members. Mr. Roets, proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I believe I have answered the questions. If there's a question that I haven't answered, someone can please point that out to me.
Chairperson, we are finished. Can we go to the next presentation?
That's why I'm
Yeah, before that. Though, Chairperson, Mr. Roets was requested to withdraw and he never withdrew, but okay, I can see, let's respect you. But what I want to say,
what is that?
As a follow-up question, please. You see,
I don't know if I can speak. Ask this guy. It's fucking racist.
Honorable Rosetta.
Yes,
we had allocated 15 minutes. We had allocated 15 minutes.
As
we
it
don't want to disadvantage other presenters.
Okay.
I think we got what we wanted from this man. Let's allow him to go and we move on.
Okay, but otherwise, thanks very much, Chair.
Okay.
If that is
and Honorable Mathatsi, also, I just want to say to yourself that Parliament has competent staff. They've kept good records of participation in the public hearings. So we are not going to rely on what Mr. Roets is saying because we have records ourselves. So let's leave that matter. Dr. Gondwe, what do you want to say?
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, there is someone on the platform by the name of Sinawo Tambo. This particular individual has just, I don't know who he was referring to, but he used the profanity and he called someone racist. So I'm not entirely sure who he was referring to, but I think that you should take note of that.
Ernst Roets is a racist.
But Chairperson, I thought you are closing. You stopped me from contributing. I thought you were closing.
No, Honorable Murasata, don't teach me how to conduct the meeting. Honorable Gondwe had not spoken, and I don't want to be accused of suppressing any view. But what she's raising now is irrelevant. She doesn't even know what the remarks, to whom what the remark was directed. So that is not something that we can entertain. Can we proceed to the next
even went ahead and repeat the same comment. Again,
Honorable
must withdraw that.
Advocate Romano.
Chairperson?
Yeah.
Can you just appeal to members of the public who are on the platform not to participate in the discussions?
Can you raise your voice?
No, I was just saying, can we request members of the public who are on this platform not to participate in the discussions?
Yes, I think it is a well-known practice that members of the public should not participate, but are allowed to observe. So I hope that they will respect that position. Can we proceed? Who is next?
Chair, quickly. So, Sinawo Tambo is a member of Parliament. He's not a member of the public. If that is what Bonan was referring to.
Oh, I see. No, thank you for that information. Let's proceed. Who is next submitter?